Growth can bring incredible opportunities, but without the right systems and strategies, it often feels like chaos is the one in charge. From misaligned teams to processes that just don't work, the challenges of scaling a business can leave even the most driven entrepreneurs feeling stuck. But what if there's a way to manage growth that not only keeps you in control, but helps your business thrive? That's exactly what today's guest specializes in. We're going to be speaking with Alyssa Sharp. With over a decade of experience in team engagement and operations, she has mastered the art of turning messy, overwhelming growth into clarity and direction. We'll dive into her practical insights, favorite tools, and lessons on how to streamline your business while keeping your team energized and engaged. Welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, we dive into practical business strategies that you can put to work in your business right away. We also focus on inspiring stories from leaders who are shaking and making things happen in their industry. It's all about giving you the tools and insights to take you and your business to the next level. So get comfortable and let's jump right in. All right. We are on episode 183 of the podcast, and today is Friday, January 24th, 2025. Today we're diving into a topic that every entrepreneur faces at some point: managing the chaos that comes with growth. And to help us tackle that topic, we're going to turn to Alyssa Sharp. Alyssa is the founder of Sharp Consulting and a true expert in team engagement and streamlined operations. She spent over 12 years turning messy systems into smooth running machines. She specializes in what she calls a human-centered agile approach. Essentially, she knows how to get teams, tools, and goals all working together without the chaos. Her background in psychology gives her a unique edge. Alyssa doesn't just focus on the numbers or the tasks. She understands the people behind them. She's all about creating clarity and making work more enjoyable for everyone involved. Now, when she's not coaching or consulting, Alyssa enjoys diving into philosophical ideas, which she credits for shaping her innovative mindset. She's proof that blending strategy with empathy can create some truly amazing results. For our quote of the week, we're actually going to pull from our special guest. During our interview, Alyssa said, "Processes are an extension of your team. When they're strong, they can save you time, reduce stress, and keep everything moving even before you bring on more people." That sums up what Alyssa is all about: helping businesses align their people, tools, and processes so they can thrive without feeling overwhelmed. Now, this interview is a full version covering about an hour, so grab your favorite drink of choice, maybe even two, and let's get started. All right, everybody. Today we have Alyssa Sharp with us. I've been affiliated with her indirectly for quite a while now, and it's been a lot of fun. We've had some good conversations, a lot of nice times back and forth. We have a lot of shared background, which is kind of cool. Project management, other things, and so I'd just like to take this opportunity to pass it over to Alyssa and tell us a little bit about you and where you come from and where you're headed.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I'm so excited to be on here with you again. I agree. We've had a lot of great conversations. I call myself an expert in team engagement and communication. I've had over 12 years in project management, program management, and I've really developed a way of leading with what I call a human-centered agile mindset, which to me means just being able to foster collaboration, streamline systems, and really drive results by helping companies and people and teams just have a deeper understanding of what everyone else needs and facilitating like meaningful change through communication, because everything that we do really is just a way to communicate and move things forward.
Yeah.
So that's
D-
that's me in a
You
nutshell.
know, something you said there I thought was really interesting. You kind of broke out companies, teams, and individuals. How are those different? I mean, when you're kind of approaching this mindset.
Yeah, you kind of, those are kind of your three big stakeholders when you're changing anything or doing anything, because the company is holistically going in a certain direction, but the company then is made up of teams that have their own, goals and things that they need to achieve in conjunction with the company's goals. But then teams are made up of individuals, and individuals have their own goals and what they want to achieve. And making sure that all three of those are aligned is a lot of times the biggest challenge.
How do you, I mean, how do you kind of approach that?
Yeah, I would say, a lot of times it'll come from, the organization, the direction that they want to go, or a change in direction. And then from there, it just really has to be very clear communication, but also really involving the teams and the individuals. And by involving, I mean not just saying, hey, this is the change we're going to do, but talking to those individuals, and I would say as early as possible, like as soon as you know you're going to change something, start talking to people, ask them, like, what do they think about it? What do they think is going to go wrong? What do they think could possibly go right? And even if you don't agree with what they think is going to go wrong, now you know, and you know a little bit more about them and what they need to actually accept the change or actually be involved and really engaged in the change.
Yeah. That engagement is key in many cases for a project to be successful. If you have a disengaged, I mean, I think we've all seen it. You get a disengaged team from the vision, and you've got nothing but a headache. It's a problem trying to move it forward. So that must be very satisfying for you, when you actually can make that difference.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any project manager out there who's never experienced that one team or that one team member who just will not go with the program. But once you can, move that along, it is so much a relief. And then you can go figure out all the other problems that are happening in your project.
Yeah. Dig in, get to seeing the whole picture,
Yeah.
broader view of everything. So this is a fascinating your background for the project management. What did you do before project management?
Yeah, I actually worked my very first job out of college. I was in a financial management firm, and I thought that was so boring. Like I could do it, right? But I was just like, this is not exciting. These numbers are not exciting to me. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I got a temporary job as a training coordinator, and that's what led me into project management. And so I think just I wanted to go back and be able to work with people and not just like look at numbers all day. And I was really good at organizing. So that's kind of how I got into project management.
Interesting, interesting. So you came out of the, I guess I ran into this myself, is this company only mindset, we're looking at this and that's as big as our square is, and we're not going to look outside that, to now you've got a much wider view, bringing the humanness back into it. It sounds like, I think you said that in your initial description.
Yeah. And I like how you said like that view. Like I don't think I ever had that this is my view thing. I think I've always been like, okay, I know this is my job I'm doing right now, but like why do I have to do it? Or like what is everyone else doing? And even when I was working in front end retail as a store manager, I would annoy my associates all the time because I would just be reorganizing how the drawers were, because I'm like, well, I decided it's actually easier to put this here because we're always accessing it. And I put this book back over here because we never access, like, and they're just like, okay, I just can't find anything, Alyssa. So I'm always just thinking, and even when I think that's why I was noticed as a training coordinator, is we were rolling out like these had a like a waterfall rollout of launches, and I had to coordinate like the materials, and I had this whole elaborate plan on how every material for each class was going to get coordinated. And so I just naturally am figuring out like, okay, here's my constraints and what I need to happen, and just be able to make it work.
Did you have some times when things went a little sideways doing it that way?
Um, like, do you mean like this the waterfall way,
Y-
or
You know,
or
looking at your process of, sorting it out and kind of coming at it from that point of view.
Oh yeah. So I would say at that, and that specifically in the beginning, like I was really good at figuring out and figuring out the perfect, most efficient way to do it. But what I was forgetting was, or what I didn't know yet was like, okay, I forgot the people. All right.
Yeah.
So I was really good at making perfect plans that made absolute amazing logical sense to me. And then it would come up against people doing it, or really not doing it. And so that is really where I had to learn the finesse of, you actually do have to work with people, with creating the plan as well as executing the plan. And that's, I think I realized I had a natural agile mindset, meaning like I have a theory, I go and do it and test it, and then I figure out if it's working, hence reorganizing the drawers all the time.
Hmm.
But when you match that with people, you have to bring people along and help them understand like they can do things differently if they're not achieving the result that they're expecting.
Hmm. So, you mentioned in conversation before, you were talking about psychology and how that works. That must really work very nicely to help you make that transition and working with a team, kind of understand how they're thinking, how they're working together.
Yeah, I would say like I graduated with my degree in psychology, but I did not know what I wanted to do with it. And so when I first went into the world of business and I didn't have a business major, I thought that I was kind of lacking. So I was like insecure, but I quickly realized I was able to kind of make connections that people were maybe thinking differently than what maybe the communication was. I could see like, okay, this communication went out, and I can see why Terry did not, read it the same way I did, and I was able to then, and I just naturally was like, I would be kind of a little cheerleader for change all the time. I'm thinking about it back then. I'd be like, okay, I know that I see why you're reading it that way, Terry, but really, I think what they're trying to do is we'll have XYZ. And I wasn't even a project manager. I was just like, oh, I love this idea. And I would just get behind it and then help people get behind it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
When I first got into business, I had that same kind of, I don't know. I was always looking around. I wasn't looking at necessarily what I was doing, and so I could see the things that were broken, that weren't working right, and it was no end of frustration for my bosses because I'm seeing all the things that are broken, and they're just like, "There's nothing broken with that." I'm like, and I really, really, really want to tell them, but it's like, no, you can't really do that. So you have to kind of go around the corner and help them behind the scenes when they don't necessarily see it, you know. So, um, so we talked a little bit about your background, a little bit about how you kind of got here. Um, when you realized that this whole process of what you're going through wasn't working for you, how did that feel? How did you kind of address that in your own mind?
And do you mean like you just working as a project manager, or
Well,
yeah?
any kind of, you knew that a lot of this stuff wasn't really working for you, and so sorry, my question bad here, but you knew that there were not things happening for you, so you started going
Mhm.
down this path on your own, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say, for me, you know, I am a hard worker, and I'll go at something and try and make it work for the longest time. Or maybe not the longest time, but I try to stay like pretty consistent. I love to figure things out. And basically once I figured something out and made the processes better or the team better, then I'm usually like, okay, like what's next? And so that I've had a few different iterations of that. Like when I was first a project manager in a retail company, I was like, okay, this is, I want to do something different. And I went and I was the project manager in events because I wanted to work with clients. And then then I was like, okay, I'm pretty much done with this. I want to go back to the corporate office. And that's how I got into consulting for digital transformations. And so I think for me, it's just like realizing when you're just ready for the next thing. And I will say I wasn't necessarily ready. I never felt like 100% confident of like jumping to different industries. I just knew that I was no longer like being challenged or like driven to do the work that I was doing at those current companies.
Yeah. Okay. How do you, this is a question I like to ask a lot of people. How do you define consulting? Everybody has a different way of that, you
Yeah,
know?
I know. I was thinking about this morning too, because, also the difference between coaching and consulting. So for me, consulting is just being able to come in and help a business like on a specific problem and move them forward. Um, and I remember when I was just coming out of college and I learned what consulting was, I was like, well, that's what I want to do. I just love helping people. And like, but I was like, but I don't know what I would consult on. And then obviously I got into project management. But that's kind of how I define consulting, someone who can come in and just help unblock a business, a team, a process, and help have them move forward then without the consultant.
Yeah. You know, Alan Weiss, he's one of the most quote unquote famous consultants out there, big ticket items. And he talks about a story of how he was coming in as a consultant for a company that was having a lot of problems. And what had happened is management had made a decision they wanted to paint the walls a different color. So they used some leftover color. And he went in to look where it was and he said, this color creates conflict in the people's mind. He goes, what color was it before? And they said that. He goes, change it back. And all the problems went away. It's like, okay, simple enough, simple answer, you know, but yeah, it moved everybody back in the direction that they needed to be in. And I kept that in my mind that that is an interesting perspective that a consultant can bring is asking that question, what changed, you know?
Yeah.
And
hmm
so now how long have you been in running your own business?
So I would say I started my business kind of part-time in 2023. So I was working on the side as well as full-time. And then I went full-time last year in the spring.
How has that transition from part-time to full-time been for you?
So the transition has been amazing. Like I would never I'm so glad that I made the decision. Obviously, it started out like really slow, but having the autonomy and what I've always liked about what I like about consulting is I could come in and help people on my specific zone of genius. So I didn't have anything else that I had to worry about. Like I can just say like this is where I get in the zone and I can do it so fast and really help you and then just kind of come in and out. So it's been great to be able to do that full time instead of just kind of on the side as a little like refresher from from the regular 9 to 5.
Yeah. Hey, how was I guess was there a lot of in meant for me mentally going into consulting and burning the bridge, you know, getting rid of the part-time job, getting rid of all of that, setting that aside. That was kind of scary, you know, when I initially decided to go do this. And I was like there's a lot of demons that creep up,
Mm-hmm.
especially for me. I was like, eh, where do I start? What do I do? You know, and like the zone of genius, figuring out what that was. Were you able to find that zone of genius in yourself easily?
So I have always known that I was just really good at like figuring out the processes and building up teams. But as far as like how that would translate to consulting, no, I was extremely scared when I decided, and I think I had just reached a point where I was burnt out on my other job because I was just working so much.
Hmm.
I probably had forgotten exactly like what I really liked to do. And so yeah, for me, not only when I first like quit my other jobs and went full time, not only was I working on like, okay, what am I going to offer? I did work a lot on my mindset. I got into spaces where people were doing the same thing, were successful in this, and I learned so much, and I've changed a lot of just my beliefs around like even just beliefs about money, like that I do deserve to like get paid.
Hmm.
It seems weird to be like thinking you don't, but like when you dig into that, you're just like, oh yeah, I do feel like maybe I don't deserve this for some reason. Like someone else could be, making this money. I don't need it, or which is
Yeah.
silly, but getting over those little things are not necessarily little, but they're not things that people talk about often when you become an entrepreneur or a business owner, is that even when you are successful, you might still think, okay, well, I don't actually deserve this. Even
Hmm.
though obviously you've done the work, you're doing great work, your clients are happy. Um, Getting over that is a big thing. And it's something that I still practice every day. But when I look back to even 8 months ago, like I've come a long way.
Yeah. Where do you think you've seen the greatest improvement in yourself?
Oh, I think it's kind of funny because I tell my friends I'm like I'm in my delusional era. But I think now I just believe that everything's going to be great. Instead of worrying about all the things that could possibly go wrong, I've really practiced. I still think those bad thoughts sometimes, but now I know like, okay, I'm thinking those thoughts that everything's going to like be horrible. And now I'm going to think about what are all the possibilities. And so that really keeps me going, and just continuously looking at like my vision and the things that I want to achieve, and who and how I want to help people really keep me motivated.
Yeah. We talked on vision in the podcast in the past. How did you get started on building your own vision? I'm always curious to hear about this because everybody's very different on this.
Yeah. So I've actually, I don't know if it's because I'm just naturally a planner. Like I've always had some kind of version of a purpose or a vision. But as I did this last year, like I said, I got into those groups and the, communities of people who are, building their own consulting. And, I created my vision and my goals for what I wanted my consulting and coaching business to look like. And what's funny is I think last month, you were doing this with me too. I think the
Hmm.
10x challenge,
Hmm.
where you do create like these big, quantum leap goals. And I remembered, oh, I think I wrote some goals like this in the past, and I found a notebook from 10 years ago where I went through the success principles by Jack Canfield, and um, I went through and I was like, okay, my purpose and vision is actually very similar, but now I just have bigger goals. I don't have as many constraints. Like I was obviously right out of college at that point, so I was like, oh yeah, I would love to just make $100,000 at a corporate job, and now I have so much um, bigger goals. The amazing thing though was when I look back at that notebook and the 30 things that I wanted to do and achieve and be like, I had checked off a lot of them in just 10 years. And it wasn't like I was going back and like looking at those every day. So
Hmm.
I feel so excited to have kind of like a vision and goals now that if I'm actually paying attention to them, I probably will, achieve them an exponential rate than I did the last 10 years.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that was interesting for me because we're both in the Wealthy Consultant for those of you listening in, and that whole community is, just phenomenal for breaking you out of your shell and actually making you think bigger than you are. And something that I realized a few years ago is that I made $250,000 in 1 year working part time. It's possible. And I went, okay, if that's just working a few hours a day, what am I capable of making long term. If I really put myself into it. And that was something that I would never have thought of, is that whole perspective, the 10x quantum thinking. How would you describe quantum thinking? I know everybody kind of talks about that too in the program.
Yeah, I know it's a newer thing for me. So I'm literally just learning about it. I've heard of quantum physics. I never really and my education comes from Doctor Strange probably just watching Marvel. But from what I've been reading in the 10X, like to me it is really just I actually was reading something else that helped me understand it. This analogy of a fly who's stuck at the window, like pushing so hard, working so hard to get through that window, when all they have to do is turn 180 degrees and go out the open door. I
Yeah.
mean, and we've all had that fly in our house, like just go out the door.
Yeah, please.
um,
Yes.
and another thing that I think that I've read, I can't remember what book it came from, but it's just like the term pathways thinking, which is you have a goal, and when you have a path, but then you get blocked on that path, is actually what are the other paths I can take to get to that goal? So I think it's really I could be completely wrong if that has nothing to do with quantum thinking or quantum leaps, but to me it's just really being innovative in how you're going to get to your goal, your vision, and it might not actually necessarily require a lot of like hard work necessarily. I think the hard work comes from the resilience and the grit, but not
Hmm.
necessarily like working 10-hour days constantly or something like that.
Yeah. I somebody asked me one time what I thought quantum was, and it's, to me, it's, you know where you are, you have an idea of where you want to go. And it's, for lack of a better, it's frequency. If you have a frequency here and you want to get to here, start adjusting your frequency. It'll drag you there. It'll move you on its own without you having to put forward all of that effort to, just allow things to naturally drag you places. And for me, that's what quantum really helps me out in, is what frequency, right? What mindset almost do I have to be in order to achieve that? Okay, what do I need to do today to take one step closer to that? And then do that every day. And that shortens that length of time that it takes to make those major changes, and moves me at the same time without having to do all this tremendous amount of effort, you know. And it's like, it's that's much easier. And so I think, in looking at some of the ways that Mike Walker and Taylor talks about, um, that same concept is basically change yourself a little at a time, and you'll move
Mm-hmm.
that way faster. So I, I too may be very wrong, but that seems like that's something that I've heard them kind of iterate to. So um, let's take a kind of a right turn here and talk about your business today. Some of the challenges that you may be facing when you're taking on new clients. What kind of challenges do you really like to grab a hold of, besides, the project management style? What kind of projects do you really like to take on and make your own and just enjoy?
Yeah, I love just like kind of jumping into a business that's in like a growth phase and they're, feeling overwhelmed and just figuring out, I call it project management operations. And I don't really think that's like a term anywhere, but for the companies that are like agencies where your operations are your projects, you're delivering projects for your clients. When you don't necessarily can go out and find a chief operating officer who is a lean Six Sigma black belt or whatever. Like you really need to figure out how you're delivering all your custom, unique services to your clients. And I just love digging in. And a lot of people actually don't even realize that they're just doing work, and they don't realize they're actually doing stuff as part of a process. And when you can break open that like clarity for them that this piece of work actually leads or comes from this other one, and it makes so much more sense holistically for them than and then you can operationalize that within the right tool,
Mhm.
and make it easy for them to actually do the work. That is what I love to do. So, I mean, I think I used to call myself lazy because I was like, I just like to make things efficient because I don't want to do more work than necessary. So, but I would be doing all this work to make it efficient. And then that's again when I would get bored and be like, okay, I'm gonna go do something else now. So,
I've
yeah.
been accused of being the same way. I'm real good in the very beginning, and at the end, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, move on. So I'll hand it off to somebody else and let them take care of
Yeah.
it. So,
Mhm.
um, so let's say you are working with well, first of all, do you have a niche?
Yeah. So I do like creative service agencies, like I think I call them like, doers and creators, and that could be anywhere from, a marketing agency or an architecture or anything that's like building and or even event like rentals, anywhere where you're really kind of just helping a customer get their vision achieved as with your own specialty kind of niche. So I love working with that because it is not a simple answer. It's not simply like, here, download this template and you're off to the races. Like everyone's a little bit unique. And then I just love helping them, make their client journey, you know, not only their client journey like high end, but also that their team is like working better together. Like that
Hmm.
is for me what I love.
Good. Well, that kind of harkens back to your very essential part of what you're talking about in the very beginning of this, you know, interview is,
Mhm.
how you pull that forward as a team, working with the individuals, the team, and the company all together. Um, do you get anybody that ever says, "I have no idea where to start"?
Oh yeah, I mean mostly everyone. Or they're
I've
like, I've tried this and this and this and this and this, and I can see like they're grasping like, and mostly it's like I've tried Asana and then I've tried Motion, and then there's that thing that tracks my time, and then I have this CRM, and then they're just like, and I'm trying to do it all at once. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah.
Now you've I've some of our conversations and indirectly you're heavily, it seems, into ClickUp. I don't quite
Yes.
understand that one yet. Maybe you could give me a good kind of a primer on what that one's for and how that helps.
Yeah, I love ClickUp. I've actually been on ClickUp for maybe 5 or 6 years. I found it on my own. And like as a project manager, and especially as someone who's been in a lot of different industries and in consulting, I've used almost every, I mean, I can't say every because now they're just coming out of the woodwork, but
Yeah.
I've used a lot of the major project management systems. And I immediately, even when it first came out, loved ClickUp, and they've, expanded their features even more. And it's because literally everything can be in one system and it can be really organized. And for me, as the admin of it, I love the hierarchy, but the people who are using it, if you set it up correctly, they don't have to know any of that complicated where to find stuff things. It just serves them up exactly what they need. Like they can see
Mhm.
their tasks, how they want to see it. They can have executive dashboards, or you can have someone who has like all the details, and it has the documents. It now has chat, so it can even replace Slack. So one more or less like software. So for me, it's hard to explain. If you haven't been in all the other project management systems, because I'm not saying that Asana or Monday are not good. Like they're very similar to ClickUp, but I think ClickUp has just like one more level of hierarchy that actually allows you to expand the organization of your programs and portfolio level, which is really important when you have a lot of different projects or clients, or just initiatives going on. So
Mhm.
Asana, Monday, and I'm sure they're all going to come at me, but they all have a portfolio management like solution. But I just think ClickUp has the most innovative, unique way of doing it.
Yeah. And I presume that you help people get that all set up and dropped in. And if they have something different, that you can help them move to that kind of a, like you say, the next level up, a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And the way that I like to do it, and I actually just put out a program, a self-guided course to help people do this if they don't have, the capacity to have me on their team, is actually teaching their team members how to go through that thought process of how you want to actually configure and set up your space. How do you transfer from all of your other tools into ClickUp, and do it in a way that is going to be sustainable. So I like to, one, have immediate wins, so your team can immediately become productive, but then they have that, they can get over that learning curve of the new tool and actually maintain that productivity over a long term. Because another issue that you can run into with having all these tools is then your team doesn't know what they should be using, which one has the right information,
Mhm.
or like you try something and then you're like, never mind, we're not doing that, and so that then your team is probably like, I don't believe that we're actually going to use this. I'm not going to use it, and then your adoption just goes like
Yeah.
downhill.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for me every time I get a new system and my technology background is I've been doing so much stuff for so many years that one of the first things I do is, okay, how do I have to think about this?
Mm-hmm.
What is it, and so I can go from CRM to CRM to CRM to CRM, and I'm like, okay, I just changed this one little thing, or I changed this click. Okay, this has got, you don't have to build your automations in Keep, but you do if you're over in Go High Level, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, all right, so what's my path to get from here to there, and how do I need to think about it? Okay, and then it makes the process so much easier. But people have to learn that. They have to learn how to get that mindset straight, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that it is something that you definitely have to learn. And that is why I also decided to just go all in on ClickUp. Not that I don't work with other uh, systems, right? Like one of my other projects, I actually helped, like one that I just did consulting one-on-one. I helped them install Jira for their processes.
Mhm.
That's fine. Like if that's the tool that they decide to go with. But if you don't have one central place yet and you're just like looking, like I would then just recommend ClickUp, and then I help people figure out how to build it to support their processes, and
Yeah,
help them. And one of the things I do like is actually help them think about it, because they're not going to have me forever. So their team member
right.
who's the admin in ClickUp needs to understand why and how I put in a certain automation or a certain template, so that if they decide in the future that it needs to be assigned to someone else, like they know how to go in and change that, and they're not like stuck with having to come back to me for all these changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that when I was doing a lot of hardcore system consulting is I had to build it so that it was easy to train somebody, because the person, I had no control of who they would choose to bring in after I left. And so I would have to have everything dialed in and then say, these are your parameters you can make changes in. If you want to go outside of that, now you need to come back to me. It's just the way that it is. And it
Yeah.
wasn't to build it, it was because in the very beginning, a lot of people would destroy my work not understanding it and
Yeah.
destroy it bad. And then the company looks at me and they're like, what'd you do to me? And it's like, I didn't do anything, man. But that's the learning curve. That's the learning curve. It's one of the challenges that, as a consultant, you have to give answers. You have to own them and keep them. Um, so um we've the elephant in the room, resistance to change.
Oh, yes.
How does that work for you? I mean, we've kind of talked around it a little bit and mentioned it, but yeah, what is that like for you as a consultant or as a coach coming into that?
I mean, it is. just a fact of life as a consultant and a coach, right? But I think being prepared for, because everyone says like the only constant in life is change. And then I add on and say, and then there's also the resistance to change. We always want to stay where we are doing what we're doing, even if you know like the new way is going to be better. Just because of that momentum of like, okay, I know I wake up every day and I have to copy and paste things from Notion to ClickUp or whatever systems you're doing. And, you're like, well, if I have to now do it in ClickUp, like what happens to all my other stuff? And then you start going down that rabbit hole of all the possible things that can go wrong, right? So
Yeah.
really resistance is just helping people not take that like, tornado twist of doom and remind them of, okay, where they're going. And it might be like a little bit of a rocky transition. You're going to have to relearn and have new like habits, but in the end it's going to be like a positive change, and you have to relate that change to something they care about. You can't just say, okay, we're going to move to ClickUp and eliminate all of our other tools, and so we're going to save money. Like your project manager or admin or developer doesn't care about
Yeah.
that. They just care about being able to get their work done. So what do they care about, and how can you relate that to why you're changing? And even if it's not just your software, but anything, like if you decide that you're going to have a new service, and now you have to tell your team, like, we're going to do this new service, like
Yeah.
what's their role going to be in the service, like how is it helping them? And that's an interesting exercise to do, because a lot of times as leaders and owners, we're not always thinking about what is the team going to think about it, because you think, oh, I've hired this team to help me do stuff, but really you're yes, you hired the team to get your work done, but you're all still working towards the same vision, and you have to make sure everyone's aligned to that, and they're humans, and you're now leading them, and they're looking to you. And honestly, if you don't guide them and they feel frustrated, like then they become apathetic, and they no longer care about you. So I think it's a two-way street, both, definitely.
Yeah.
So it definitely does take a different mindset as someone who's an owner and really helping their team change, because you're originally thinking, well, I hired them, I'm paying them. But if they're not on board with you, they don't care. Even if they don't
Yeah.
say they don't care, like it's just, as an employee, you reach a certain point of frustration where you're like, okay, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to do the minimum.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting is that I deal with a lot of product-based businesses. I don't really focus on that, but one of the biggest kind of ahas that when I say it to people is I say, yes, you are a product-based business. That's wonderful. Do you realize how many services outnumber your products? Every logistic service, customer service, financial service, all these other services, and each one of them has to be effective, or it doesn't matter how good your product is. And you see a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
kind of go, because they never considered that, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm going to read this question verbatim because my questions are getting a little wild here. But what's been the hardest part of balancing client needs, running your own business, and staying true to your vision for what you want to build?
Yeah, so when I read this question, I know because you sent me a few of them ahead of time, and I was like, okay, well, I feel a little bit weird saying I haven't actually run into that yet. So, I mean, I try to think about, okay, so why haven't I really, run into that? And I think that when I decided to just go full time, it was because I decided, like, this is how I want my life to be. This is how I
Mhm.
want to serve the clients. And I was very clear of, when my coaching hours were, what I was doing during when I was consulting, and I stayed true to that. And I'm not saying like I haven't had any like difficult times, and I've been working hard, but I never felt like oh, I'm not balancing it all. And I think it really was because I started out with that vision, and I've continued to refine it, throughout the last year. But, I was like, this is how I want to work, and I'm going to make it work that way. And
Hmm.
I was just kind of dedicated to that.
Yeah. I see. I had the opposite experience. For over 10 years, I ran a cloud hosting business. And you are working 24/7, 365.
Mhm.
Whether you acknowledge it or not, your clients expect you to be on the ball, even when there are, other teams working, because we followed the sun. We had a follow the sun support system. And so a lot of people would either be in, we had some that were in Germany, some that were India, some that were Australia. And then I had to manage everything West Coast to East Coast, which makes a very long day as it is. And, clients want certain things and they want it a certain way at a certain time. And if you are doing something that you need to do, and you have to do it when they don't want you to, it can cause some, some real, I've lost clients over that because we have to do it, and it's like I can't afford the impact down the road of not doing this, because trust me,
Yep.
it'll go sideways when you don't want it to, you know
Yeah.
and it's certainly
And
when I don't.
fortunately, I'm not in providing those kind of services that someone will need me at the midnight. Now, I've definitely been in working that way, like when in events, like if there's an, I think one time we had an event that was in like Germany or maybe it was in Greece, and you're getting the call like 1 a.m. and I'm like, I don't know where the carpet is. I'm in Ohio. But they're calling you as a project manager, right? So
As
you
if
have
you're
to,
supposed to know exactly where everything is. Yes.
I know. So now I'm like, okay, who do I call to figure out where the carpet is? Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh man. So good. I had some other questions, but I kind of want to maybe lean ahead a little bit. Look ahead for Alyssa and your business. You're now doing the independent consulting. What excites you the most about this? Doing this on a regular basis.
yeah, what excites me the most, I would say, I think I mentioned it earlier, is just being able to come in and help people like in the area that I am like what I call my zone of genius, is that where I can get into flow so fast. And like I said, I also like I'm building that course so that I can help more and more people do that, where I have a certain capacity to be able to do projects personally. But I'm adding in the courses and coaching so that I can help more people do that, because I would say like my main mission is to help people have more fun at work by having streamlined, processes and teams.
Hmm.
Because it, to me, like when I was a team member and employee, there was nothing more frustrating than having to do something that seemed really dumb or was holding me back from able to do the work that put me in the deep work.
Hmm.
And so I really want that for as many companies as possible, so that, I've done it for a few, and it just makes life better because you're at work 40 hours a week, right? So you
Yeah.
might as well make it more
Or in
fun,
our
make it
case,
more.
60 to 80.
So that is really what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's coming in the next year or two that you can see is going to impact your type of business? Is there anything that you can see that's going to maybe side rail it, cause any challenges?
I mean, anything can cause a challenge. And for me, like, I think, obviously, I think AI is going to introduce a lot. And I've already started talking, like, I still have a few project manager coaching clients as well, because I also was coaching just project managers. And I've been talking more and more about AI, and it's going to replace a lot of the admin work of project managers, right?
Hmm.
So what do project managers do when AI can create the project plan for you? And that is really where how you build up your team, your emotional intelligence to know like, okay, why is Terry taking this communication so wrong? What should we do to change it? the change management of projects. And I think the tools, like I said, I'm all in on ClickUp. They release features all the time. Keeping up on that. What if something else comes out better? And I think just being on top of what the industry needs. But I think it also just comes down to being agile, which is taking in the information and seeing, are you still on the right path to
Yeah.
where you're going? And if you're not, like, what should you do instead? So I would say the biggest thing is just how AI is going to impact, because it's going to impact every single industry as a business, and it's also going to impact how employees are. Um, you know, I'm sure some companies already have SOPs on how to prompt AI, and that's going to be probably a standard SOP that every company has pretty soon. And so, how do we incorporate that into what we're doing here? So
Yeah. Yeah, I know that for me, I use AI all the time for all kinds of things. And, you know, it it helps me as long as I keep one thing in mind. I have to be the arbiter of it. Regardless of what it suggests, regardless of what it says, I'm the one that owns the decision of what happens with it.
mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of people I see and talk with, they don't quite understand the danger in not doing that. And it's like, they'll come up with a new program and AI will design it for them. Oh, well, it's this. And it's like, okay, you have to take a step back and do, as you were talking about, the human side of it. Okay, that's the business side. How do you deal with the human side? And then now you need to shape it and mold it. It's not something you can just say make it and there it is. And
Yeah,
for a lot of people that are, you know, I won't say a lot. I guess it's not really a lot. It's some of the people that are making more of the strides in using it are missing that. It's you still need to
yeah,
be you. And um, even if it's not, even if it's not comfortable and even if it's not convenient, it's like any other tool. You have to respect the tool or you will get hurt. I worked in the oil fields for years. And there's a lot of tools that are out there that come in a lot of shapes and sizes and they weigh a lot of, there's a lot of weight in them. And if you do not respect the weight of what you're dealing with, you're going to get hurt, you know.
yeah. Or you can hurt someone else.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know.
Well.
so so since part of this is in this podcast is about new businesses.
Mhm.
Um What advice would you give to someone who's looking to start their own business or they've already started it and they're getting to that point where they're starting to grow and things are having to change? What kind of advice
Mm.
would you give them in that case?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different, because if you're just starting, I would be just like where I struggled, because I've been in so many industries and have so much diverse experience. I was like, I can help a lot of different companies doing a lot of different things, right? Like, I've worked on websites, I've worked in events, and I really had to hone in and be like, no, I'm going to help people build out their project management processes,
Hmm.
right? And even though I can help them build a website and I can help them do all this stuff. So I think niching down was my biggest challenge, and what I would then, advise, like, just, figure out the one thing that you really, really want to do.
Hmm.
But then if you get to that growth stage where you're just like, now you're successful, you have clients coming in, I would say, like, yeah, you do need to work on your processes, because as you're first starting, you're scrappy and you're figuring it out and you're doing it. And then once you start hiring people and you're like, okay, I don't know how to train them. I don't know how to get the information out of them and to them. Like, I then look at processes as an extension of your team and really, like, shoring it up. It's something you can invest in before you invest in another team member, because you might feel, oh, I'm at capacity, I need to hire someone else, I'm not sure who, I'm not sure what. Maybe that's probably time to actually figure out, okay, do we actually have everything, do we know what we're actually doing? Figure that out, get your team really strong and really efficient, and then see you might not need another team member. You might actually then
Sure.
be able to continue growing with the same amount of people, and not doing as much work.
Yeah.
So like that's
Yeah.
what I would advise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good because I think a lot of people miss that point. They just hire. They just go, "Oh, I need
Mhm.
another person." And they haven't clearly defined, let alone what that person's going to do, how that person's going to actually be trained, how that person is going to, what is it they're going to be able to achieve that's going to make the difference in the business. And when that occurs, they're sitting there going, gee, I really don't know. So they're almost throwing a dart at the wall and hoping they hit the balloon. And it's like
Yeah.
there are a lot of, you know, there's a lot of people that are out there that may not work for. Um, so turn this a little bit lighter. Okay. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would that be?
I would say could not put as much pressure on myself to be perfect and make all the right decisions. I felt like I just had to not make any mistakes and I had to like be successful as fast as possible. So, don't be so pressured to make all the right decisions and that there's plenty of time to figure things out.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's something that because we're all in a hurry, right? We
Yeah.
we have so many things that we have to get done. We and when we're starting, especially, growing into something, we have to be patient with ourselves. We're learning. And as long as we're making mistakes, we're growing. But growing doesn't always feel like the right thing. So, and so, two more questions, if I may. Okay.
Yeah.
What's one thing you do regularly to keep yourself inspired?
Um, Regularly, like I
It could be
do
personally, professionally, either one, both.
yeah, I think regularly I think I do make an effort to look back at where I've been and how far that I've come. And that is also something that I've learned in the last year or maybe got reiterated a lot is um it's we all have goals and things we want to hit and we might not always hit them, but you can always look back to where you were and you can see that you've made progress. So I think it's just continuously looking back at how much progress I have made, and that continues to give me confidence that I can keep moving forward.
Good. And favorite question, what's something unique or unexpected about you that most people might not know?
I would say most people don't know. I minored in philosophy and I just really love
Ooh.
existentialism and phenomenology, which I don't know if anyone knows what those terms are. But I think it maybe is what gave me my agile mindset because it's all about like the perspective you're taking, like, and you can decide what that means for you. So you can decide the meaning of your life, and things can happen to you, and you can determine, okay, I believe that. Like you said, if you're making mistakes, you can decide that, okay, you're a failure, or you can decide that you're learning, right? So you kind of have ownership of your life and how you want to move it forward. But that's not something like, I don't have a blog or anything on philosophy, but it's something I do keep up with, and I think probably paints a lot of my decisions and mindset. So
Good, good. So, kind of wrap it up a little bit here. For the listeners that are intrigued about your story, your background, everything about you, and they want to actually get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
yeah, so I mean, there's three main ways. Like LinkedIn, you can message me. I have open messaging, so you don't necessarily have to be connected. My Instagram, I'm always in my DMs. Or you can just email info@asharpcoach.com.
Good, good. And um, a lot of I really appreciate all the time you spent. Um, so any other words of wisdom that you might want to share with our audience that Alyssa Sharp?
Um, I don't know if there's anything necessary. We went over a lot of stuff. But I think that what we got at the beginning around talking about agile is it is all about like incremental changes towards a larger quantum leap. So I think the main thing I think anyone should take away is like you should have a big vision, but you should be agile in how you're going to get to it. You
Yeah.
know, the plan can change, but the vision should stay the same.
Yeah. Flexibility is interesting because there's a degree of flexibility that if you're inflexible, it tends to break you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not certainly not something that a lot of people want to do. I know I'm reading a book. That's my way of staying focused on the personal is that and
Mm-hmm.
music, right? I do a tremendous amount of reading and there's a book that I'm going through. Strangely enough, it's called Japanese Yoga. And
Oh,
it's combination of mind and body together, being able to blend them and do certain basic exercises. But the there's some exercises that they do that are like, you have your arm in a certain way or you have your fingers like this and somebody else tries to pull them apart. And if you can picture like a solid ring around the top, it's not going to go anywhere. But normally it would just pop right open. And
yeah,
so I'm like, that's kind of interesting, is the flexibility factor of what you picture can make the difference in how solid you are and how organized you can be and put all the pieces together. So excellent. Well, Alyssa, I thank you very much for the time today. It's always fun to have a great conversation with you.
yeah. We
This
do.
one this
We
one
could
went a
probably
little
talk.
deeper than I figured it would. So that was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's always great when you can get deeper in conversation
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah. And not go crazy about it at the same time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we'll go ahead and thank you very much, and we'll go ahead and head out of this. I'll go right into my outro here, but for now, thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, everybody. This is Alyssa Sharp with A Sharp Coaching, and you know, go ahead and contact her if you have any questions, need any help, please, definitely. All right. We'll see y'all later. That's it for this episode. I hope you picked up some valuable insights and maybe even sparked a few new ideas. If you want to keep the conversation going or maybe even explore partnerships, don't hesitate to reach out. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. The steps you take today could be the start of something big tomorrow. For the budding entrepreneur, I wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care, and we'll see you back here next week.